Hello, I'm Robert, fact checker for Doomsday Debunk, where we help people scared of these various things. And this time it's about the coronavirus. And so it's been so hyped up in the news. I get people PMing me and get comments in the group and so on. People are absolutely, even suicidal about it, and just scared about it, absolutely terrified, and doing all sorts of precautions, asking me, should I go to Seattle because I heard there was a case in Seattle. You don't need to worry about this at all. It's not serious if you're outside China. There's only been one case so far of person-to-person transmission outside China, and that was a father to a son in Vietnam. And so, based on that, and there's 63 cases at the moment, last I checked, outside China. And they are all people who've come from China. Yeah, well, the first 25 are all from China. We don't have the case histories of all the other ones yet. I can wait till the latest report, which will be sometime later tonight. But there's very little transfer from person to person, and only one out of the first 25. And so the international cases are very quickly contained. And even if you're in China, then if you can, it's not very easy to transmit person to person. You're talking about things like if you have another family visit yours. It was one of the earliest where it was proved that it happened person by person. A family from Shenzhen visited a family in Wuhan. Then when they left and went back to Shenzhen, they brought the infection with them. So that's the case. If you have very close contact, two families that are mingling together for a few days or within a family, then in that situation you can get infection. But it's not very... But now, of course, they know all about that. And so China is putting a big stop on all that. And they're chasing... There's 32,000 contacts. So I've got these figures down here. So let's go quickly down. And so these, I think it's got a little bit up for 2009. It's a little bit over that. Let's go to the Wikipedia page. I don't use Wikipedia for most things, but on this particular topic, then a lot of Chinese-speaking users in Wikipedia who are updating it, and they are copying things over from the Chinese Wikipedia. And so they're about the most up-to-date you can find on the web. You need to treat the rest of the article with some caution, because it's just people editing and they're not always right. But they will take a scary article and just put the scary detail into it and things like that. But certainly these figures, then seems to be very accurate. Later on the same day, you get the WHO report and it backs it up. So anyway, so as of writing this, the 2,827 confirmed cases, and the 5,007, this is from another source, 5,000 odd suspected, 2,000 getting on for 3,000 confirmed cases of infection. So at that 4% rate, there are 82 deaths, and if all those suspected cases became confirmed cases, and then they died, then 4% of that would be another quite a few. So let's just work it out properly. On my shift key, star. So I was pressing the wrong key. 100. What am I doing? And you'd expect 231. So just for the very basic figure, if those all became confirmed cases, and then it was the same percentage, then you could get into, we could be getting into the hundreds dying in China. That wouldn't be too surprising. So this is just based on people already infected. So expect these figures to go up. It won't be at all surprising you've got, say, 300 deaths after a few weeks. After a week or so, maybe even shorter than that. And maybe that figure that was confirmed could go up to maybe 8,000 or something. So you could easily have 300 or more deaths. So, and they're tracking 32,000 close contacts, and some of those could again become suspected cases and confirmed cases. So this is not at all certain that this is finished. So this is just based on the ones who are infected already. So please don't panic if you get these figures going up, and if you hear it's expected to go up to 100, 200, 300, and it might go a bit more than that. With SARS it went to 724, but that wasn't contained until quite late. So, but during all of this is happening in China. Most of the increase is happening in China. All these thousands of extra cases, the 82 deaths and all those cases. Now, of these 63 confirmed cases abroad, then you could expect maybe 2 or 3 to die. Again, just based on this very simple reasoning, that if it's 4%. So please don't be upset if you hear that someone has died outside China. You can more or less expect that to happen. It would be rather surprising if it doesn't happen eventually. Again, it doesn't mean that you're at risk. So how do you stop infection? I've got a little section here. So the nurses, that's what's happening in China. So there's so much going on. And then yes, this is mid-edit, so I thought I'd do the video before I finish it. So avoiding infection, you've got to wash your hands frequently, especially after they contact objects that others may have coughed on or sneezed on. And keep away, obviously, when people are coughing and sneezing. And you need to do the cleaning after you touch surfaces they think might have infected you, and before you touch your mouth or eyes. So apparently, I might even have done it during this, I don't know if I did, but people often, I suppose you tend not to see like touching my face just then, or your hair or whatever, and people often do that. I did that consciously just to show you, but you just whatever, do something like that. Well, you need to be a bit careful. People typically do that every minute or two, if they're just in daily life, without even noticing. So, the best way to avoid infection, but your risk is very, very tiny. You don't have any risk, in fact. I think you could really say practically zero, effectively zero risk if you're outside China. But your main risk is from flu. But this is quite useful for protecting yourself from flu, and thousands of people die of flu every year, so it's quite sensible. So if you do that, then incidentally you're also protecting yourself from this virus, but just for people who are a bit hypochondriac, got health anxiety, then just wash your hands frequently and keep away from people who are coughing and sneezing. And there's not a significant risk, so that's not a bit of a typo there, not a significant risk internationally or in the near future. And so what else do I need to say? The birth risk tiny in China. So why does China have so many cases? Then it's like, imagine if in the United States these people had been coming into the United States for the last month, and nobody knew that they had them. Now, this actually happened with SARS, with Canada at least, that many people came to there from China, and the Chinese didn't even let on for about 3 months. It was actually going on. And this is back when our medicine was very primitive compared to today, back in 2003. So anyway, with China, then they didn't know for sure that it was a new disease until the first case they have is 1st of December, and that was the blue ones are from weren't exposed to Wuhan. Oh, that's strange. Yes, the very first case they have in that list was not exposed. That's a bit strange. I wonder what that means. and the red ones were. The market eventually closed. That was then they got the alert. So, I mean, there was person-to-person infection right way back there. Anyway, I have to look at the paper, but the see if it explains. But anyway, they had that entire month, and then they and before they actually closed it down, and of course all these people we now know were infecting other people. These are just the serious cases going into hospital, and there would be other ones that they were infecting. So it's no wonder that you got a big boost. Then you had all these people, even families visiting families, and families maybe even they didn't even realise they had it. Because look, this is how long from onset of cough. It starts the onset of cough for each of these people, and this is when they went to the hospital. So until they knew about it back then. And then there's another figure like that here. If I go down to here, so this is just the average of the first 41 cases, onset of infection, which they could have been infected. The onset of symptoms could be infected up to 2 weeks before then. And so this first case, I think, is just from the onset of infection. If I go back up there, could be infected 2 weeks before then, if I'm right, if I'm understanding this right. Anyway, the onset of infection, then it's a whole week before the early ones were admitted to hospital on average, and then it was up to, and then it was 10.5 days before they in intensive care, which was a range of values up to 17. It could be up to 17 days from onset of infection to intensive care. So there's no wonder that early on it was expanding, and most of these thousands of cases would be from those very early days. So don't expect the same to happen in the West, and not just the West, Australia, to Vietnam, wherever you are. Sorry, I'm just saying the wrong word, Nepal or anything. Wherever you are, then it doesn't mean that you're going to get thousands of cases there, because you know, and your authorities know what they're dealing with. It's a very, very different situation from what was happening in China, even through to the 11th. It took until the 11th for them to sequence it. Until then, they had no way of testing to be sure that these people had the virus. I don't think they did anyway before the 11th. If I've made any mistakes in this, if some of you are expert, then do correct me. And do check in the comments just in case I've made any mistakes. I'm just summarising it up. I've talked about this in a previous video, and this nurse in Wuhan, she's not a medical expert. She's not like, a nurse knows how to treat people, knows how to alleviate symptoms, knows how to do various medical care, but they're not a doctor. And she's not, and certainly not the doctor in terms of the team that are dealing with them. And it seems that she has some confusions there. But she thought the 90,000 people were infected, but that can't be the case. It's probably 90,000 people who had a fever, and who went in to get treatment, get checked, and so they were rushed off their feet, all the nurses in Wuhan hospitals, because these tens of thousands of people suddenly flooding to the hospital wanted to be tested because they've got a fever and a bit tired, or they've got a cough, and they're all coming to the hospital to be tested to see if they've got this virus. And so, and with that, in a city of 11 million, 90,000 is not at all unbelievable as just being people who've got the flu or a cold, a bad flu. More like a bad flu if they've got a fever. So, and again, we don't know quite what she was saying in Chinese. If you happen to be a Chinese speaker, maybe you can be sure to tell me if they summarise correctly, but she's probably just misunderstood. Just a rumour going around amongst the nurses. And the thing about 14 people being infected is, which she also says, it just can't be right, because the international cases wouldn't be like that. We can tell from the international cases it's not highly infectious like that. So, And how infectious is it? So then here's some interesting thing. I'm going to probably have to write this up properly. So first of all, the interesting thing is that, probably it's 1.4 to 2.5 in the early days. And there's this very misleading paper that it's not their fault because it was just a preprint. But Reuters went and ran with it as if it was, the most highly high up-to-date research, and it just wasn't an unfinished paper basically, and so this is the paper, and they said, oh, I haven't written this up properly, but so there's this paper that says 190,000 would be infected. It's just don't pay any attention to that, because it's just mid-edit really on a preprint server, and then Reuters decided to run a story about it, about this half-baked paper, half-baked in the sense that the researchers hadn't finished writing it. That's basically the situation. They pop things up on the preprint servers for other people to look at, and it's not meant for the whole world to read, even though it's public. Yes, what about the vaccine? So, yes, and I just want to say something about it. I'm going to add something to this. I don't seem to have added it yet, but the SARS virus did not mutate much at all. Do I have anything about mutate? Let's see if I've got it on the page. No, I don't seem to have included it. No, so I'll have to add that in. But this particular type of vaccine, the coronaviruses, they do not mutate very easily. That is to say, they apparently mutate very, very readily, but then they then reproduce from different copies of themselves, and then they use that to correct these mistakes. And so they make lots of mistakes, and then they correct them. And the SARS vaccine, apparently, the SARS virus apparently hardly mutated at all, and so this one is not likely to mutate. And rather puzzlingly, a little bit difficult to understand, the only mutation of the SARS virus was to delete something that made it a bit more infectious in humans. So it just accidentally lost a little bit of its infectivity in the process of spreading, which is a little bit puzzling, but it's really because they think because it had no competition, and it just so happened that as it spread, then the virus that lost a little bit of its ability to infect humans happened to be the one that spread more, and there just wasn't enough of it to kind of an early bottleneck, as it were. So it's not really too likely that this mutates. It's not likely it increases the death rate, which is probably less than 4%, because there are probably lots of people who weren't of those 32,000 contacts. There may be quite a few who had it and got over it, and it's all gone, all done now. So they're not necessarily even going to find everyone. Well, I suppose maybe they find the antibodies, so then that would help them to find the people who've had it and got over it, to get an idea of the death rate. Anyway, the death rate they currently think is 4%. So, but that could be probably revised downwards. It's nothing like Ebola, which is 25% to 90% death rate, and it's mainly affecting elderly people and people with some challenged immune systems, not only but mainly, and that is the same with SARS. So SARS, if you're over 60, you had a 50% chance of dying with SARS, but the overall death rate was only 10%. And it's likely to be the same with this one, and certainly the figures so far suggest that you have a higher death rate, but not nearly as high as SARS, but you have a higher death rate if you're elderly. So anything else I need to talk about? Oh yes, the vaccine. So I'm trying to keep these a little bit short, because I think some of my previous videos have been a little bit too long on this. So what about a vaccine? Oh yes, there it is. Ignore the 190,000 figure. That's just a paper that's made edit that was published around the world, way beyond it. They just weren't ready for it to be published, and it wasn't published. And the authors of the paper itself said that the numbers need to be changed, and it's much less than that. So, but they haven't got around to editing it yet. You have lots of numbers they have to update in the paper based on the newest figures. So, what about a vaccine? Then the SARS virus, they did develop a vaccine eventually, but it was never used. So, that is likely to be what happens with this one as well. So, if it's contained, so as I said, expect that death rate to go up to maybe 300 or so. It could go more. I'm just doing that based on this very crude figure of just the suspected cases so far, and adding those to the 82. And I can't remember what was my number. So I'm just doing this to give you a rough idea. 231, add 82, plus 82, let's just add the 82. You get 313. So this is not doing research, this is just give you a very rough idea of where this could be heading. I haven't found anyone making any actual predictions, but just based on those numbers there, and supposing the same percentage of those suspected cases, and that's supposing they all became confirmed, which they probably won't. So, and then you can also look at the ones in critical condition. That's another way of looking at 461. There may be quite a few of those going to die. So it's not surprising a few hundred, but then if they've contained it now, then after that few hundred, then the confirmed cases will start going down. So at least if you look at the ones that confirmed minus recovered, as it were, then the ones who remain infected and still going through and haven't recovered yet, then which they haven't even put up on Wikipedia yet, because not so many have recovered, but some have. And so because they just have to progress all the way through to the end to recover. And so the many who are at home, so for instance the Japanese person, that's one I remember, and he's now at home recovering from it, but he's not completely, I don't know if he's completely over yet. So there'll be quite a few amongst these that are now recovering. They never reached the dangerous phase, and they're just recovering. And that's what's happening with these international ones. Most of those, 96% of them, then they either probably won't even progress to the dangerous stage, or even when they reach that point, then they recover. So that's what to expect. I expect the numbers abroad to increase, and we may get 2 or 3 deaths, we may get more, because these numbers are increasing. It's 63, and that probably increase, get more coming up. So expect more cases abroad and more deaths, but the number actually infected any time, the ones who haven't yet got over it, then that number eventually, probably a few weeks from now, if it has been contained, that'll start going down. And the deaths, well, obviously people who have died are now dead. The number of deaths can only go up; it can't go down because they've already died. But the number of deaths will increase more slowly, and then eventually stop. And then when the number of deaths stop and the number of confirmed cases deaths would eventually slow down until the very few dying, confirmed cases going down, and then eventually the deaths stop and the whole thing is over. So that's what to expect over the next few weeks. Please don't get alarmed when the numbers go up, because they're bound to go up, and probably to several hundred are going to die. And don't expect it to stop at 82. That's no way that's going to happen. And probably several hundred at least. It doesn't look at the moment like thousands, and the international situation, then it doesn't look like it's going to be many going to die internationally, although a few probably will, just based on these basic stats. And as I said, there are all these models, but the models are useless because they're not, they're based on ignoring all the measures that are being done to contain it, and they can't model that yet because they don't know what the effect of that is. So even if someone comes up with a really good, well published model, if this thing has gone all through peer review, and they get to whatever there's so many thousand for 4th of February, remember that it's still not a model based on what they're doing now, unless they somehow manage to incorporate that. So anyway, so really, you don't have much to worry about. You don't have anything to worry about if you're international. And if you're in Wuhan, as I said in another video, just take the basic precautions. Avoiding infection, just take those precautions, and your main risk is flu, not this. And if I was writing in Wuhan, I would not feel that I needed to be evacuated. That's just kind of hysteria, and catering to people's worries. So when you have all these different governments saying, "Oh, we're going to evacuate our citizens," they could just as well just say to their citizens, "You take a lot of care and take these precautions, and you'll be okay." And keep away from people who are coughing and sneezing. They have absolutely minute risk, effectively zero. I mean, you can't understand why they're doing it, but I don't. If I was in Wuhan and it was important for me to be there, and I don't think I'd bother to get evacuated, even if I was offered it, if there was some reason to stay there. So, anyway, I hope this helps you.